So thank you so much, Xalavier Nelson Jr. Once again, it's great to have a chat with you. I think the last time I spoke to you, you just put out a Dog Airport game.
That was
And
a while back.
yeah, it was. So I really appreciate you coming on and just having a quick chat with me here because let's face it, you've been very busy. You've got a lot going on, haven't you? Personally, but also just so much with Strange Scaffold and yeah. How do you manage it all? I don't know how you do it.
The grace of God and very careful planning. I've tried to almost game design my life to a degree to further the priorities that I have for my life and for my approach to making things. So, uh, people sometimes ask me, wait, how can you make a game in 2 months? It's like, well, you make every decision about that game within the prism of the perspective it has to come out in 2 months. And every other industry does it except for video games, and they tend to hit their deadlines more often. What a wild concept. So I've been very fortunate because of amazing team members as well as like a more holistic life approach to be able to work on more things and bring more things into the world.
Now you mentioned make a game in 2 months. I'm guessing you're talking about Clickolding there because that's the game that you've just put out. I played it last night on stream, actually. Really enjoyed it.
How did it
Very
go?
interesting experience. What was that whole experience been like? Because this was born out of you chatting with some other developers at late night at GDC, right?
Yeah. GDC hotel lobby hangout, 2 a.m. Time and space becomes a blurry concept. So out of that comes clickholding as well as the earnest desire, despite the name, to really build a meaningful new definition of what it means to be unsettled by a video game in that experience. And from all indications, it seems that we managed to pull off something pretty special.
And yeah, for people who've maybe not heard about it yet or don't know what it is, it's you are in this hotel room with this guy with a mask over his face. Actually, one question I've got: what is the mask? I had a few people going, what is that supposed to be? Is it like a moose mask?
So the interesting thing about it is we were originally going to do the whole like animal mask thing. We were going to go with the fox. And Gary Kings, who does all of our trailers, I told him about this, and he said, "This is the worst game idea you've ever had. I don't think I'll be making trailers for this." He did end up making trailers for it, by the way. He saw the vision in time. He's like, "I don't think I'll be making trailers for this even, but if you're going to do this, you need to choose something that isn't an animal mask. You need to do something that sets it apart and that says something specific with it, or else you've kind of wasted the opportunity and missed the assignment." And I really thought about that as I try to think about any like strong statement from one of my collaborators. And I said, okay, uh, I got to take this seriously. So went to Dimitri Sofidis, who is our lead artist on the game. And I said, hey, we need to come up with a new kind of mask. And we ended up with a visual language that he calls the danger noodle, which is that smooth, long, undulating things have create an uncanny sense of visceral displeasure. Things like the dolphin, for example. Some people see in dolphins an adorable creature. I see in them a deep air of malice and menace, as any other zoologist will tell you, or marine biologist rather. So we came up where we centered pretty quickly around if it's a long, smooth shape that communicates danger to the human mind, and how do we build, a mask that ends up, especially in the post game, when you encounter someone else with a similar face. How does that tell a story? How does that deliver a new type of character concept that walks that line? One of the most genius points that Dimitri made actually along that way was making the eyes off, like offset,
Yes.
like a hug, don't hug me, I'm scared character.
Yes. Oh, I love that series. It's so good.
It's so good, and we there is a version of the mask where the eyes are set forward,
Yeah.
and it immediately that small touch of goofiness and imperfection, in fact, made the entire mask work better as an engine of unease because we aren't going for danger. We aren't going for Resident Evil 7. We're going for, I don't know what this person wants. I don't know if they're going to hurt me. And when that mask and those skewed eyes pull out a gun,
Yes.
it creates that vibe very quickly. So I'm really proud of the team effort, including the straight up criticism call out that resulted in us coming up with that mask design.
And like I said, you're in this hotel room with this guy. He's making you click this clicker, and this was born out of a real sort of live circumstance of you being with some devs and someone having a clicker and you guys sort of playing around with it. And but how does it go from? I'm really interested in. You're all in that space. You're all kind of having joking about what a game might be, maybe involving a clicker. How do you decide, right, I'm actually going to make this game, guys? And where does that come from, and when did that point happen?
The thing that means for me that it's a game worth making is if I don't just know what we'd be making, but exactly how we'd be making it. Space Warlord Organ Training Simulator didn't begin really even thinking of production until I literally assembled the entire team and I said, hey, give me a week to make sure I know we're making the right thing. I took all the documents, I examined them for where are inconsistencies? Where is the vision, in fact, not clear? Where is this game not fully figured out in what we'd be building? And in a similar way, Clickolding being something that can be built better, faster, cheaper, and healthier, as is the studio's motto. Something that can be made efficiently but can make a big impact in a small package that is greater than some of its parts. When we're making this joke, and I realized there was a chance to do something more than just a joke here, and that it could be built in a way that fits the way our studio tries to approach things, that was a set of magic ingredients that said to me, we should do this.
And then how do you, because you've been sort of discussing it with the other devs, are you like, at what point are you like, guys, it's my game, I've got this? Or like, how did you sort of negotiate that?
I mean, almost immediately, partially because no one else wanted to make
yes,
it. Like,
right. Okay, fair enough.
It's clickholding. It's a 3 a.m. joke. So when
they
I'm
were like, yeah, you can have it. Like, we don't want this. That's really funny.
So yeah, when I'm pulling out a notebook in the middle of it and I'm writing down and I'm pitching them, hey, here's the ending. No, I'm going to actually make this. I'm going to actually make this. And as I said in the Wired interview, if you don't fund this, you are a coward who is spitting in the face of God. That kind of communicated pretty clearly we're making this.
Amazing. I love it. And I mean, it's had a great response. How have you, what's it been like? Because 2 months, obviously not a great length of time to be making something that's getting this huge amount of response. What's it been like making it and then having so many people jump on board with it?
It's been deeply gratifying because this was not a project that, like a lot of our projects, that immediately speaks to being a piece of art. An airport for aliens couldn't run by dogs unless you're coming in thinking that it's going to be artful or you already know something about it. There's a lot of people who buy expecting a meme. And within the first couple hours, most people have cried at least once playing the game. And the fact that they're having that experience with a JPEG of a dog means it pulls off this magic trick. So we've made a game in as little as a week. That was Mr. Bucket Told Me To as part of the Dread X collection. And, the success of that game and the other games in the collection kicked off Dread X as a publisher, Dread XP. We don't, almost starting from a lack of assumptions, saying just because it's made in 2 months doesn't mean it can't impact people, meant that we came in and said, so how do we build something that does something meaningful with that time? And all credits to the team and our dynamic and how we collaborated to bring this together. They really smashed it out of the park, and I'm so proud of, even if it hadn't gotten this amount of attention, I'm proud of what we built and how we built it at the end of the day and what we learned in the process of building it.
And I mean, I saw your TikTok where you were talking about how, you've actually had people wanting to tip you more money for it or say it should be more. I'm guessing you can't raise the price for it now, right? It's got to stay how it is.
I mean, you could. That's actually, I think, one of the best things that happened with Iron Lung by Dave Zemansky. He was like, inflation is a thing. Also, a lot of people still want to buy this game. It just makes sense to raise the price, and if you got it, and I'll keep it. I'll even do a discount so you can buy it at this low price before we raise it because the game is worth more. Uh, I I think that things like that are rad as hell. Games should be valued. It shouldn't be a race to the bottom. But one of the things I do like about clickholding is, especially as an unsettling object, and an object that is asking for a degree of player trust, I want to make it very easy to begin that trust relationship.
Right. Yeah.
So, it's only $3 is a pretty good pitch for, okay, maybe this game is going to harm me coming out the other end of it. And having, again, a team that got behind that vision and Outer Sloth as a funder who got behind that. I think the game is quote unquote worth more. Everything is subjective. But
Yeah. I
I
mean,
appreciate that it's so accessible, and I want to make games that are accessible for people at every price point for Strange Scaffold. Sorry, and I also interrupted you.
no, I mean, I was interrupting you because you were talking, so don't worry. I was literally just going to say, it's. I do think it's interesting because people do basically seem to associate the length of game with the value, and do you think is there a way we can ever sort of change that or do away with that kind of system? Is that ever going to change it in any way, or is that just how? I mean, how else can we value games? But it seems to be that's the. I was just thinking by the fact that people are thinking, oh, it's a short game. Oh, I need to give it more money.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're a family, an average trip to the movies can easily run you more than $50, and it feels worth it as an experience. Games provide so much value for their runtime. I think that a world where we do not equate the graphical fidelity of a game or its length with its price is an objectively better world. I don't know if we'll ever reach it,
No, I don't think we will, unfortunately.
but I do think that it is. Um, I think it is when we talk about pricing, especially in a time where people are being squeezed on every side, it is as much a conversation about how much we're valuing devs' work as the position a game is meant to take in someone's life. So, El Paso Elsewhere, a full $20 products, we should have priced it at 25. But we priced it at 20, and that meant that it was more accessible to more people. Sunshine Shuffle, experience with a lot of replay value, is $10. In some ways, it's a more dynamic title than several other games, but this will sound a little loosey goosey, but this is part of why I also believe games should exist at different scales. Is when you make games at different scales, that means they can occupy different price points, which means everybody can play a game at some point, hopefully. AAA games can go on sale for $3 8 years from now. And in the meantime, here's these indies at a variety of price points and a variety of value scales and things that they're trying to do that can fit this place in your life. And that's why the homogenization of the industry is something I so desperately oppose and am concerned that we see growing.
Yeah.
Because when every game is $25, kind of like if every game is $70, there's still some people who charge 60 versus 70. That diversity of price point and game accessibility is good. And then you have free-to-play stuff like Fortnite, which you can play forever. All of those things coexisting is good. When all of those things are competing at the exact same space, that's bad. When every indie game is $25, people will play less indie games because they're also trying to afford eggs, which, at least in my area, post even the major price hikes, it's 3 times the price I would have paid for it a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to have to choose between a Strange Scaffold game and eggs. I want you to feel like if you have spent egg money on a Strange Scaffold
Oh.
game, it's an experience you can't have any other way. So it's worth it.
I mean, on that point, then, what are your thoughts about kind of subscription services and Game Pass and things like that? Because I think I remember when I was speaking to you, it must have been like maybe 2021 when an airport for aliens currently run by dogs. Obviously, you were talking about. I remember you mentioning how xCloud and sort of Game Pass were great in terms of being able to get games out as a smaller indie developer, and how simple it was compared to things like PlayStation, for example, or other, ventures. I don't know if you did actually say specifically PlayStation, but in general, just other things. What do you think about Game Pass now? What do you think about these subscription services? Is it still a model you think works for developers?
It depends.
Yeah.
Everything is a holistic strategy, and I think what you're seeing right now in games is the numbers don't make sense. And for the first time, the audience has both enough context and the paths are so egregious that the numbers not making sense is clear to everyone in the room, including players. So Arcane Austin gets shut down.
Yeah.
In a universe where Game Pass is around, games that don't immediately take off can and should be possible. The studio should be able to stay open regardless. The idea of, in a world with Game Pass, what are the new types of games that get brought about? You see this with other subscription services. Uh, PlayStation now has their own Game Pass-like offering across a number of subscription tiers, including older titles that are in one
Yeah.
specific piece of the thing for some reason. The idea that you have games with $500 million recoups in the world, in our universe at this point, and that those games don't just cost $500 million; they keep getting developed. So it's actually becomes closer to $1 billion over the course of 3, 4, 5 years. Is something we have not reckoned with, and we are trying to shove a square peg into a round hole in so many different ways, not having fully unified perspective. So that's a very long way in a lot of context to say, do I believe in Game Pass and Game Pass-like offerings? Yes. Has that made games more accessible to me and other people like me? Because especially if I was a kid right now, compared to like saving up my cash for like one of like maybe 2, 3 games I'd be able to get over the course of the year, be able to pay even 15, $20 to Microsoft every month and play hundreds is mind-boggling. The value something like a Fortnite provides every month is mind-boggling. But we are running deeply unsustainable machines, and we all acknowledge that it can't be this way forever, but no one wants to blink and say we need to change. I've talked to people about this a lot, and in 2023, if the industry had crashed, it would have hurt a lot of people, but it also would have forced people to say, hey, we're doing something that isn't working. But while we're having the most abysmal human failures and casualties, and honestly, a degrading of quality for several of our offerings for our games, we're also getting the greatest successes of all time. We're getting things like Baldur's Gate 3, which encourages people to say, well, let's do it. Let's roll the dice. And it's becoming very gambler brained in a way that's very explicit. So I believe in Game Pass. I believe in Game Pass like offerings. I believe that they can make games accessible and provide windows into experiences and publicity to audience and cash flow that makes sense for both the platform and for individual games. But in so many cases, the numbers don't make sense. The numbers don't make sense. How long it takes us to make games and our budgets and the fact that those are inconsistent do not make sense. And it's forcing decisions which are not confusing when you realize that everybody, even established companies, are kind of using startup rules
Yeah.
and are now trying to walk it back to a point where it does make sense, having not provided any communication with their audience in the meantime about the factors that went into it. So everyone's doing multiple price hikes right now.
Yeah.
That's because the price never did make sense. It was a loss leader. Now the price is going up, and it may or may not still be worth it, but like that it was never going to continue that way unless they changed the way that they did things or how what it was all equating to. And if they aren't, well, I'd say this year's price hikes aren't the end of it.
No, I don't think they are either. But it's just it's difficult to know how it can keep going and well, like you said, be sustainable with it as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, you seem quite sustainable. Yet Strange Scaffold seems to be doing pretty well, and I'm interested in your kind of like constellation model of keeping things, constantly going and getting in, small part-time teams for projects and that idea. Why aren't we seeing other places do that, or are they doing that more? It feels like is that not the solution to try and stop crunch and these issues?
Better, more precise scope,
Yeah.
not better scope, but more precise scoping, uh, projects of small, medium, and large sizes all coexisting, providing multiple bets and multiple ways for people to learn across more games at a time. Shorter games that are not lower in quality but are instead focused on what they achieve. Kunitsugami from Capcom is a great recent example of a game that feels very PS2 era in the sense that it's a game of with a focused vision of what it's doing and how it's doing, and it just does that. And everybody's losing their minds over being like, "Oh my gosh, it's just a video game. It's not a platform for content and with a roadmap, and it's not coming out half finished. It's just a game that comes out and is a new thing. Maybe you like it." I believe that what Strange Scaffold is standing for is trying to provide consistently exciting, meaningful experiences for players. Sometimes it will be unsettling. Sometimes it will be breathless and fun, like I Am Your Beast. Sometimes it will be a mixture of those things, like El Paso Elsewhere, or it will be a breezy comedic adventure that has unexpected emotion, like an Airport for Aliens Killing My Dogs. But having players at the heart of what we're doing and asking how do we give players the next game they didn't know that they needed. I think the more we can ask that question as an industry, the more we can, combined with better production practices, pull out of the economic production and also negative player relationship hole that we're in right now. But I also see the future of actually reaching that as a medium to be deeply unlikely, unfortunately, because I think among other things, the fear that is in the medium right now of we need this game to sell. How do
Yeah.
we make sure that every game sells?
Yes.
Means we actually are not having our eyes on what the players want or what they're asking for. We're having the eyes on what players are already doing elsewhere. So Manor Lords comes out.
Yeah.
A bunch of people pitch a Manor Lords like, and things that are not a Manor Lords like don't get funded because publishers are like, well, if it's not like Manor Lords, will it sell copies? Which means players are being de-emphasized. We are mining increasingly. It's like if you put 200 uh, mining professionals, because I don't want to say miners, you put 200 mining professionals into the same hole, a 5x5 square
Yeah.
inch, and say, this is the only way we make games that will sell, guys. And then a lethal company swoops in. And then we shove those 200 mining professionals into that hole and say, no, we need to make things like Vampire Survivors, things like Lethal Company. We have to make it. We have to make it. Strange Scaffold is looking for other areas and other ways we can satisfy people while also making the games efficiently enough and hopefully in a human enough way that development staff survive and we all survive, shipping even games that don't do terribly well or that were much harder to bring to life than originally expected, like Sunshine Shuffle, we get to make our next game regardless. That's always the hope.
And in which case, I mean, how when you say this is what, but how is it? Because you're bringing in these kind of smaller teams, and it's not like you've got this huge amount of staff. Is that the reason? And obviously, the idea that you're bringing games that are unusual in some way and going to catch people's eye and are maybe not something people are calling out for, but when they see it, they're like, "Oh, that's very interesting." Do you think is it a mixture of those things, or what?
What you make changes, how you make something changes what you make.
Mm-hmm.
And it's considering those as a symbiotic relationship. So Clickolding, there's a version where we spent 6 months on it. Is that a better game? Is that a stronger experience for players? Is it a less crunch-free environment? Does it encourage development decisions that are going to make the game better? If the answer isn't a concrete yes, then we don't spend 6 months on that game. We spend 2. For other games, it makes sense to say, hey, this needs like 2 years. We're going to spend 2 years on it. We have a multiplayer game we're working on now, and the decision we made on that was, in comparison to several other shorter development games, this one is going to have a bigger timeline because it's our first time making a multiplayer experience. We want to do it right, and we also want to do something kind of unique and special. The idea that games should get the time that they deserve, but they should also release on time so that it can force the decisions that results, like any piece of creativity, in the constraints that create a better experience. That's where we're starting from. And right now, so much of both game development and game criticism is coming at a place so that divorces games from all context. It treats what you're making and how you make it as totally distinct entities. And it's part of the reason we result in the deep psychological dissonance that we have. The Batman Arkham games did not have like a $300 million budget, from what I understand. Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League did, which
Yeah.
means you're going to have a different type of game with different incentives and different ways it needs to reach the player to recoup that money. But if we aren't going to talk about the money, if we aren't going to talk about the context, then Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League just looks like a poor decision that anyone could have foreseen, despite the fact that craft and work got put into it. I want, partially out of craving and investigating and finding answers to make games make more sense to me, I want games to make more sense to players.
And speaking on that note, we've just got a few minutes left, but tell me about I Am Your Beast, which is due to be released quite soon.
So I Am Your Beast is a covert revenge thriller FPS, very speedrunning, kind of you see things in that space like Neon White and Teardown in particular, where you go into these mini sandboxes. They're filled with dudes who want to kill you. They're filled with objectives you got to fulfill, like smashing laptops and satellites. And you, playing as a secret agent who has turned down one last job too many, you have instigated a guerrilla war against the military-industrial complex itself that takes place across the North American wilderness.
Right.
So you pop into these levels, you throw guns at dudes and stomp their heads and drop bees on them and kick them in the back such that all their limbs explode and fly off. And then duck back into your hidey hole before the military finds where you are and airstrikes the location to hell. So I'm Your Beast was a game that got canceled twice.
Right.
It was a game that no one funded or saw potential in outside of the team. And Frosty Pop, people who have really believed in our vision, they got behind it. And they said, no, you have a track record. If you think that this game has legs, we'll back it up. And it's now one of the most wishlisted games across all of Steam. So
Nice.
It's a pleasant surprise to the entire team. We knew we were making something cool, but we didn't know it would be that well received. And it's this comic book inspired, stylish FPS where you accomplish objectives fast, kill dudes in really stylish ways, and get better at doing it. So That comes out August 15th, 2024, with
Yes.
a new trailer coming very, very soon, maybe by the time this even comes out.
Yes.
And we're really thankful as a team that, speaking of this environment that we're in games right now, we were doing something a little bit different. The look was a little different, the vision was a little different. You can find things that are adjacent, like Teardown or Neon White, but it didn't look the exact same as every boomer shooter that's getting made or funded right now. As a result, people didn't see value in it. And so that meant players might have never found this thing that has now brought value to their lives. Uh, I want more games to exist so that more players can find the game that they didn't know they needed. And I'm really proud that Strange Scaffold gets to exist as a studio that makes apparently so many of them.
Yes, well, you definitely do. And, I can't wait to play I Am Your Beast. And I've really enjoyed all the stuff you've put out recently. And long may it continue, Xalavier. Thank you so much for having a chat with me. And yeah, just really looking forward to. Well, about the sort of 8 or 9 games you put out in the next year or something like that.
It'll only be roughly, because we have Clickolding out, I'm Your Beast. It'll only be like 4 or 5.
Yeah, that's fine. That's all. You're slacking in that case. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm taking a little break. We've had a rough year.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, we'll let you off. Okay, well, thank you so much again for having a chat with me. It's always lovely to speak to you. And yeah, if people want to find out more about all these kind of things, I guess where should they go? It's just Strange Scaffold. Find out everything about you
Strange
guys.
Scaffold
Yeah,
everywhere. Rit Nelson, WRIT Nelson everywhere. And pick up Clickolding for $2.69 on Steam right now, as well as Wishlist I'm Your Beast, because it's coming real soon.
great stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.